It is not the project the client wants. It is not the project the neighbors want. And it is definitely not the ideal project for the council either. So why am I here as an architect developing this option, which just seems to be the wrong one to go with? You see, I've been working on this project, which is a walking distance from my office. And in the last couple of videos, I analyzed the site and I have come up with two proposals. I'm not really going to go over these proposals in detail because for the purposes of this video, I don't really need to. You can just go back and see the process upon finishing this video if you like. What is important to point out though is that out of these two options, one of them respected all the community guidelines, but didn't seem to make the neighbors any happier for it. Whilst the other option I came up with did not respect the community guidelines, but it did take into account the feedback I had received from the neighbors. And I would stake that this option would be the one that the neighbors would be really happy with. Of course, I cannot vouch for that because I didn't have a second round of discussions. We just didn't get there. But I like this option so much that I even offered my client to develop it at my own cost, thinking that everyone would be happier for it. I mean, this option better fitted the site. It responded better to what I felt the neighborhood required. And as I said before, it integrated the feedback from the immediate neighbors. Unfortunately, the client decided against this offer. He liked the new project and he definitely liked the new approach. Nevertheless, he didn't really want to go for the bumpy ride. He knew that this was still risky. Even if I were to develop it at my own cost as I offered, he would have to sit on the site for another 6 months, waiting for a new answer from the council. He also felt it was just not possible to have all the neighbors aligned behind the project, which is something we would need if we are going to go against the community guidelines. So here comes option 3. I think his response is completely reasonable. It's a simple answer to the question, how can I build the most yet having the least impact upon my neighbors so that I don't raise any red flags, or at least I raise the least red flags. His request is again completely reasonable. He wants to make the project significantly smaller. So this would mean that he would no longer afford an underground parking. So parking spaces would have to move to the ground floor. For this, we're going to have to set our structure back so we can have the parking spaces before our building. I am also meant to stop our new project 3 meters before I hit my neighbor, creating a corridor so that my neighbor with the windows on the party wall can keep his windows and have a reasonable setback. I'm not sure if 3 meters is reasonable enough, but that's what he asked for and that's what we're doing. Basically, we're going to end up with a project that looks like this. And here we are at the meat of the business. You see, I believe that this third option is not giving anyone what they ultimately wanted. It's just giving everyone involved the least worst they could possibly get. It doesn't really comply with the community guidelines because we are creating a setback. We're no longer aligned. This is something that was required by the guidelines. And we're not aligned because we are creating a parking space. Now, I'm not a fan of creating parking spaces before the building because I believe that this is the worst you can offer to a vibrant urban environment. I know this is a fairly quiet street, but that's its character today. The street is 50 meters or 2 minutes walk from the city center. The city center can easily splur into this area, and this is just not the forward thinking I was wanting for this plot. But at this point, I'd like you to weigh in. I mean, please Drop a comment. Tell me what you think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this option is the one that works best, and I'm simply being too ambitious or wanting something that is just not there. That could happen. My job is actually to propose options. It is the client's right to develop the option that he or she deems best. I can only present the arguments. I will also leave a poll in the community tab, so feel free to weigh your opinion there and see how's it going, what everybody else thinks. Back to the dilemma at hand. What am I supposed to do going forward with this project? You'd be correct to think that, well, if the architect doesn't really believe in the project, maybe I, as a client, should change architects. That's not bad, actually. That's quite smart. Fortunately for me, my client doesn't really watch my videos. More importantly, though, is I never said I didn't believe in this project. I do. I also believe I am a professional who loves a challenge, and I think we can do a wonderful project here. That being said, again, it doesn't stop amazing me that we're now developing an option that was not the client's first choice. And as I said, I haven't really checked back, but I would imagine that it's not the neighbor's first choice either. And I don't think that the council will be particularly happy with this option. They may be okay with it, but nothing tells me that they're gonna be enthused about it. And it's a bit sad because I feel that at the end of the day, we're developing this project simply because the proper channels of communication are not set up for understanding how the other side feels. We're just too comfortable with the status quo, with the way things are. And each party involved simply wants the best for itself, which would actually mean, apparently, not allowing the other side to have the best option, which could also be synergically the best option for me, for all parties involved, as I firmly believe. To be honest, I also have to admit that I'm not sure what the proper communication channels would look like. I mean, it's not easy creating positive feedback loops where everyone can just weigh in and then we can just show again and then back and forth again, because that would take time and resources. But the way it works today is just not ideal. You see, if we want to have the opinions of the council and the neighbors, well, these carry problems on their own right. So let's start with the council. If we want to consult the council, and they are normally open for consultations, we usually have to end up waiting for about a month before we can get an actual meeting with them. I mean, they're open for consultations, but they are quite busy, and we have to respect that, and that's fine. The problem lies, however, in the fact that the council is not ready to offer positive feedback on a project. Normally, they would give you a negative one, and there's an explanation for this. And this is the reason why I usually dissuade my clients from consulting the council altogether. The problem is that when you go to see the council, normally you're going to go with a project that is not fully developed. At this point, there are just too many questions, and the council sees itself in an uneasy position. And this is completely fair on their side. I mean, they wouldn't want to weigh in positively, because then they would lose the opportunity to answer negatively about this project if they don't like the way it evolved. And this could happen. I mean, you can consult the council, have a positive feedback, develop the project into a way that the council doesn't like it, and now, as you're requesting approval, the council sees itself in a tricky position where it cannot just go against the project, because legally it's standing on weak ground. So that's a position the council really wants to avoid. So normally when you get a feedback like we did, it's a negative one. In our project, in our proposal, we got a letter from the council authorizing us to build up to 2 residences in our plot. For context, our neighbor with the windows on the party wall, she has 3 residences on her plot, and her plot is half the size of my client's. So, of course, we're going to push back. But this is starting from a place where there's just a lack of trust, probably. The neighbors, well, they're simply not used to being consulted, so they're not really going to go out of the way to give their opinions. Who's to say these opinions are going to be interpreted or assimilated into a project? I mean, I have done so, as I showed before, but it's understandable how they feel. They would just rather go to the council and object to a project than to see how they can make it better. I feel that these communication problems may be addressed with the new technologies and social media, and there is great potential. I think that this is actually a great means of doing so. I think YouTube could actually weigh on this as well. That's why I asked you for your opinion. But for now, let's focus back on my project and what do I have to do when I have to develop the option, which is simply probably not the most ideal one. Well, you wouldn't be surprised to know that what I do is I kick ass and develop the best possible project I possibly can. And you'll see all this developing as I upload more videos. So, stay tuned. Vamos a empezar.